Hello everyone, my name is Laura and I'm a partner engineer on Messenger.
Hi, and I'm Yash. Like Laura, I support the developer platforms team.
We would like to welcome you to our brand new video on how to build an automated experience on Messenger. We will be talking about the Messenger platform and how in less than 15 minutes you can build your own great automated experience up and running.
And I'll be assisting Laura throughout this journey and playing the role of a business consultant. So let's take a look at the brief that we have for today. I'm a clothing store owner.
All right.
And I want to find a way to engage with my audience on Messenger. And what I'm looking for is an automated experience that can sort of help me scale this to multiple people. I mean, it's hard. I have a small business, but I have big aspirations and I want to scale. So
okay, right. Yeah. So how would you see the overall experience?
So the overall experience, the way I think about it is, a person starts talking to my Messenger experience, and then it sort of gives them recommendations based on their clothing style and what they like. And then eventually, if they like something, I want them to be able to buy it through the platform, if that's possible.
Yeah.
And eventually, when the purchase is done, I want them to have a really good experience with my customer care team. If they want to track the order or if they want to, return something. So I think overall, that's how I think about the experience.
Okay, so there would be like a consideration phase, which could be a building block in the conversation, right?
Yes.
And then, so you have live agents.
Yes.
All right, so we can offer customer support through the experience.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess you want probably to have feedback.
Yeah, that would be great.
On your experience, right?
Yeah,
and on the live agents, how they do.
Absolutely.
We can offer that as well.
That's great. So what do we do next? How do we set it up?
We can set up your experience.
Yeah.
But for that, we need first a page. That would be the identity of your business.
Okay.
And an app. So let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we click on the create button here, page. And we will set up a business or a brand. And we click on get started. So for the page name.
Original Closed Clothing.
So let's shorten that to OC Clothing. And the category?
Retail.
Okay. Cool. So it's creating your page in the background. And this will be the identity of your bot. Okay. So for example, the image that we're going to upload here will be used in the Messenger conversation.
Okay.
So let's upload your logo. And we will skip for the cover photo. So now we created the page for your business and we need to create your app. So in order to do that, you need to go to developers.facebook.com.
Right.
So let's do that. I go to my app and I add a new app here. So let's use the same name.
OC Clothing.
Yep. And I will keep my contact email. To continue, because we are building a Messenger experience, you will need to click on product here and add a new product. So we are looking for Messenger and clicking here on setup.
Perfect. All right, so that's great. So we have the page ID set up, we have the page set up, we have the app and the app ID. What else do we need to do? Where do we set the whole bot up?
So now we will code. And we have actually released a code sample on FB Samples named Original Closed Clothing.
Great.
So we can use this code sample and start to spin up our automated experience.
Let's do it.
So let's go to GitHub, FB Sample Original Closed Clothing. So let's clone that repository. We will switch to our terminal. Here, let's type git clone the repo.
So I should have Git set up for that before.
Yes. Yeah, you will need to have Git set up for that. And the first step we want to do is actually to use your local environment to set up your experience. Next, we can see how to do that with, for example, a remote server like Roku.
Great.
So now you cd into your project. And we will need to populate your environment variable. So for that, we will need to get a few information.
Right. So environment variables is how my code sample here will know which page and which app to connect with.
Exactly, yes. So for that, we are helping you, and we actually
Okay.
created a sample.env file. So let's switch to our favorite IDE, and you will see that there is .sample.env here, and you can just rename that into .env file. Right. So you will need a page ID, an app ID, a page access token, an app secret, a verified token, app URL, and your shop URL. So let's get our page ID from the page we just created here. Now let's get our app ID. And our page access token. So the way to get that is actually to select a page here. So it will be OC closing. You will need to edit the permission. And then you're done.
So now I've connected my app to the page.
Yeah, exactly. And it will generate a page access token that will be required when we do API's call.
On behalf of my page.
Exactly.
From the app.
Yes.
Perfect. That
Yes.
makes sense.
So let's copy that, and we can put that into our .env file. And now we will need our app secret. So in order to get that app secret, you just go back to your app dashboard here.
Mm-hmm.
You would scroll up and go to setting, basic,
Okay.
and you have here your app secret. So you just show it
That's great.
and copy it, and then boom. So we wanted a verified token. A verified token is any random string that we will be using in order to verify that the Messenger platform call on our webhook is actually coming from the Messenger platform.
Oh, all right.
So let's create, for example, OC closing.
So that's great. What about if I don't have a website and I'm on my computer and I want to still test this?
Yeah, so this is what we're actually doing. Right now, we clone the repository locally on our computer, right? But obviously, the Messenger platform cannot access your local host.
Right.
So in order to expose your local host, you will need to use a tunnel. So for that, we can actually use local tunnel. So let's see how we do that. So first, in order to install local tunnel, you will need to have a node on your installed on your computer.
Mm-hmm. Which node version should we use?
So for the sample, we're using node 10
And above.
and above.
Okay.
So it would be preferable to actually use that version.
Perfect. That's great.
So let's install local tunnel. So I type in npm install, and we will install it globally. So you can use that for any of your projects.
Perfect. Great. So local tunnel is creating a proxy for my local web server over the internet.
Totally, yes. So now we will send a request to local tunnel to give us a domain that we can use for our webhook.
Okay, great. So do we need to assign a port to it?
Yes, exactly. So for that example, we will use 3000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that in the environment variable
Yeah.
file, right? Yes.
So we do lt -- port 3000.
Great.
And now we have our URL. So let's copy that.
Into the environment file,
Yes, exactly.
right?
Right.
And for the shop URL, we already have the website.
Yes. So we created originalcostclothing.com,
Yeah.
and we can use this URL here and paste that into our shop URL. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So we are done with the environment variable, and we can go back to our terminal. So like I say, you would use your favorite dependency manager. I'm going to use Yarn to install all the node module.
Great.
Cool. So now that Yarn has installed all our dependencies, we can now launch our app using node app.js. So the app is listening on port 3000, the one we're using for local tunnel.
Yes.
And we should be good to test that it's actually up and running. So let's go to our browser and use the URL from local tunnel. Okay, so this is up and running, and what we can see here is the index page of our app that is running locally.
Okay.
To complete the settings, we need to type in profile and pass in our verified token, the one we were talking about earlier. So if you remember, it was OC clothing is the best.
Yes.
And we would add a mode that I will explain later, and it will be equal all. So what this profile endpoint is doing for you is actually setting your webhook for your app and setting your messenger profile. We will see later what does it mean, and setting some personas as well. So let's dig into that a bit further on in the video.
Yeah.
So now let's see if it's actually working Messenger.
That's great. Let's do it.
Now let's go to our Messenger app on our phone. So we will be searching for the page we just created, OC Closing. Just here. And yes, so we have the Messenger profile. So the Messenger profile is this brief description that you can see here. And we have the Get Started button that we set up through the profile endpoint.
Right.
Okay, so when I click on Get Started, it's launching the conversation. And you can see that your webhook is already answering to my messages.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so this is actually running from your local host.
So can we go through all the different things that I wanted the experience to do for my customers?
Yes. So one of the best practice is that when the customer click on Get Started, to actually present them with a brief description of what the experience can do for them. So here we have a greeting message that is personalized.
So let's go through outfit suggestions.
Okay, cool. So if I click on that, you can see that we will ask you a couple of questions if you want to get an outfit for yourself or for someone else. And then the occasion for this outfit. So here, dinner, and the budget you are ready to spend. Cool, so $30. And yeah, so you have your first outfit recommended for you. You can choose to shop this look. It will pop up a web view to your website. So it's basically loading your web page just inside Messenger.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
And all of this is being served from my local server right now.
Yes.
All right.
Incredible, right?
Yes.
Right, so let's go back to the experience. And you can say another look, but you can also see that we have a persistent menu here, right? So if, for example, your customer want to get a bit more advice or want answer to his question regarding, for example, order updates, then he can just click on it.
That's great.
So you could link to your account or search by order number. So let's try the search by order number. Let's say, for example, you have a number like 3456, and it will tell me the status of the order. Yes. Other features that we offer in the persistent menu is going back to outfit suggestions, but also to talk to an agent.
Right.
So if at any point you feel that the experience as a customer is not answering to all your questions, you can decide to be transferred to a live agent,
Great.
right? So we want to talk to an agent because we have an issue with our order. So we can do order inquiries here. And we will have Riandi who will be helping me here.
Okay, great.
Cool.
So this looks like a complete experience. We covered recommendation, which is great. And then based on the recommendation, we were able to recommend the right outfit.
Yes.
From the outfit recommendation, we are even able to go and shop on our website. We can do order fulfillment.
Yeah.
We can do tracking.
Yes.
We can do customer service. So this is great. So it gives me a flavor of how to set it up on my local server. And now if I want to set this up on a web server or a web service, like say AWS or Heroku, how would I go about that?
Yeah, sure. Let's see how we can deploy that on Heroku. So we will go back to our terminal. Oh, by the way, here we see all the log from all the requests from the Messenger platform.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
So all the interactions that we just had with the bot
Yes.
is logged here.
Yes. So we would assume that you already have a Heroku account.
Yeah.
And that you've installed Heroku CLI on your computer. We don't need our local tunnel anymore.
Okay.
Because we will be hosting that on a remote server. Right. So just check that Heroku is indeed installed on our computer. Right. So cool. So Heroku is installed on our computer, and now you just need to run Heroku apps create, and it will create a new fresh app for us.
Great.
Okay, cool. So now we can add our project to Heroku. So we just do git add, and we will do our first commit to Heroku. Awesome. And in order to push to Heroku, it's just git push Heroku master.
That looks great.
Yes.
Now that we're setting this up, would we also have to change the app URL in the environment variable?
Exactly. So for Heroku, we cannot use our .env file. We'll actually need to set up our config variables within the Heroku UI. So let's do that. So now let's go to our Heroku account. So you will see my freshly created app here. And if you go to settings, reveal config variables, this is where you would copy and paste what we have already in our env file.
Okay.
Okay. So and now for the app URL here, if you do open app, you would see the app URL that we want to use. And actually you can see that it's already up and running on Heroku.
Perfect.
So we have the same index page.
Perfect.
So app URL.
And for the shop URL, we'll just use the website.
Exactly, yeah. Shop URL. Cool.
That's great.
So our config variables are all set up. And the next step we want to do is exactly the same as on your local host, is to go to the profile endpoint and use your verify token, which was OC closing
Is the best.
is the best. And the mode equal all. Right. So everything is set up for us, and we can now go back to our Messenger experience and see if it's still running. So in order to verify that the experience is still up and running with Heroku, let's just delete this thread and start again the conversation. Let's just get started, and the experience, it's still answering. And now this is answering through Heroku.
Right.
Right, so everything is working fine.
Set up just as before.
Set up
But
just as before.
this time it's online
It's
and it's
online,
available
yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Great. Great. So now that the messaging experience is set up and everything's there, everything's on Heroku, so I can expect my customers, my friends to start using the service, or?
So there's one last thing.
Oh, okay.
Right. So in order for the public to access your automated experience, you will need, as a developer, to request the necessary permission from your app dashboard. So let's see where you can do that.
Great.
So if you go back to the Messenger platform tab on the developer dashboard, if you scroll down here, you will have pages messaging permission that you can request, and pages user local.
Right.
Right.
And what is pages messaging?
So this one is mandatory, is to enable your app to send and receive messages
Right.
from a Facebook page. So
Okay.
basically, when your customer sends a message through the Facebook page,
Right.
you will need this permission.
And that's required for my experience to be in production.
Yes.
Right. And what about user locale? Why do I need
So
that?
user local is to understand what is the preferred language for your user.
Right.
So in this sample bot that we've cloned from GitHub, we are actually supporting different local, like for example, English, French, Indonesian, Spanish, Portuguese, etc.
Right.
So you might have like a variety of languages that you want to support for your business, and it's possible by fetching the user local and just adapting to it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, so we are back to our Messenger experience, and you actually can see that we are asking feedback to the user a few minutes after they interacted with your live agent.
Right.
So here they can click on one of the quick replies. So let's click on good. Yeah. And you can even send a suggestion if you have any feedback for the experience.
So that was great. We learned how to build an automated experience on Messenger for a clothing company. We covered all the business use cases. We built it on our local server and on Heroku. And Laura showed us how to deploy it under 15 minutes, set up a page, set up an app. I really want to understand what's happening under the hood.
Yeah, sure. So what we can do is just dive into our code.
Yeah.
So let's jump into our IDE. Here we see our .env file that was still opened.
Yes.
But let's start with the beginning. So we have the app.js file, which is where we do all the initial setup for your app. So
this is the root file for the entire experience.
yes. So for example, when you do node app.js and you are launching your app, you're actually calling this file.
Okay.
Right?
Great.
And this file is calling a lot of modules
Right.
that I will describe in a second. So there are a lot of various JS framework, and for this sample we're using express.js. So this is why we're actually requiring express here on the top of the file, and a couple of other modules that are needed to run the app. But let's have a look at this one. So receive is actually a service that we built in order to process each messages that your webhook will receive.
All right.
Right? The Graph API is where all the logic for the graph to call the Graph API will lie. So the user here is just to store all the information regarding the user. So for example, is the user ID, the user local, etc.
Got it.
Config file, we will cover that as well, is where we are calling all the config variables.
Right.
I18N is, as I mentioned, we are using the user local, and you can use I18N in order to internationalize the experience, right? So let's jump straight into line 48 here. So here is the get webhook, and this get webhook is the endpoint that is requested by the Messenger platform in order to validate your webhook. So you will need to set that up with your verified token. So when the Messenger platform send a request to this webhook, they will match if the verified token that you register from your app dashboard
Right.
match the verified token that you set up in your config variable.
Great.
And then we have the most important part of the logic, which is the post endpoint to your webhook. So this is where the Messenger platform is posting any events that I receive on your Facebook page to your business logic.
Right.
So what you see here on line 78 is that we are looping through all the events, webhook events, that we receive. And we identify which kind of event is that. So it could be a read, it could be a delivery, but it could be also a message event. And this is what we are focusing on, right? So for each of these events, we want to understand what is sender PSID or user ID, basically. And for this user ID...
So just to stop you there for a second, the PSID in this case is the user ID.
Yes.
So PSID stands for the page scoped
ID, exactly,
right.
yes.
Got it.
once we receive the PS ID, we want to fetch this additional information for the user, so including the user local. And in order to do so, we just call the Graph API, get user profile, and we set the local for the experience.
Right.
So you can see that here.
And is this also something we use to personalize the experience where the message was
Yes.
like, hi, Laura?
Yes.
So there we
Yes.
get the name and
so
stuff.
when we fetch all this information, we actually store them into the user.js.
Right.
And it includes, like you say, first name, last name. So you can
Great.
actually greet the customer by his first name and last name. So here is the endpoint on line 138, the profile endpoint that we use to finalize the setup of our app. So it includes setting up the webhook. So it means attaching your page to your app, but also setting up your messenger profile, which include the greeting text that you see on when you land into the messenger experience, the get started button, and
Yes.
also the persistent menu. It's set up here.
Okay.
So here's the persona, and we are creating 4 personas for billing, care, order, and sales.
So what's a persona?
So a persona is basically a virtual persona. So what it means is that when a customer interacts with your messenger experience, throughout the conversation, you might want them to interact with other sub-experiences. For example,
Like order fulfillment or
Yes.
tracking or customer care.
Exactly.
Right.
And for example, even talk to a human agent.
Right.
So if you want to pass the thread to another app within the same conversation,
Right.
then you want to give them signal
Right.
that they are actually talking, for example, to live agents. So you can display a different avatar and have like there will be like a mention that they are actually talking to, like, for example, the sales assistants.
So can you show me what one of those sub-experiences looks like?
Yeah, sure. So here, if you go in services, you would see, for example, care, and you will have curation, and you have survey, etc. So let's dig into care, for example. So in this file, we are actually handling any payload regarding care. And you can see that there is logic for supporting order inquiries,
Right.
billing inquiries, and also sales inquiries. This is really where we build the logic in order to, for example, pass the thread to a live agent.
Yeah.
So just another quick example. Here is survey. So anytime you will speak to a live agent, you might want to get the feedback from the user on how, for example, the sales assistant was doing, right? And this is where the logic is built. So we have the class survey, and here you can see that it's generating an agent rating with like a few emoji for is it good, is it average, is it bad? So all these services are...
So based on this,
Yeah.
I can keep a record of how my agents are
Yeah.
in terms of customer service.
Totally, yes.
Got it. That's
Yes.
great.
So what we are using here is messages templates. So you can include button, quick replies, etc., images, etc.
And these are entities which show up in my experience.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. These are like literally the blocks that the building block that you are using in your conversation.
Got it.
Right. And it's just a way to fetch the user input in a very structured way.
So is it safe to say that each template is linked to a UI element?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if a customer sends a message and they don't know that they can just reply with like one of the UI elements?
Yeah, so for that, we are actually using built-in NLP. NLP stands for Natural Language Processing. And it's just a way to extract meaningful information out of the message that people send. So for example, detecting that you're sending hello or hi, and this will be identified as a greeting. So we are also supporting that into this sample code.
Right.
So let's see. So in receive.js, we have built a handle text message function. And this function is just handling any text messages that you receive on your webhook. And this is where exactly we are calling the built-in NLP power. So exactly here, we can detect if the message is actually a greeting and then answer accordingly to the user.
Right.
So in our case, for this experience, whenever a user say hi, hello, bonjour, we will actually start over the conversation from the beginning.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So now I understand how the inner workings work. I had one more question though.
Yeah.
if I want to analyze how my messaging experience is working out, how do I analyze that? Is there an analytics tool? Is there some
Yeah.
place where I can go and
Good
see
question.
all of that?
So we have Facebook Analytics, and this is where you can, for example, track the analytics for your page, but also for your Messenger app. Again, in this code, we have set up in the graphapi.js like a really simple call to Facebook Analytics, FBA events. But if you want to get into more detail into that, I invite you to watch our new video on Facebook Analytics
Okay,
for
great.
Messenger experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thanks, Laura, for showing us all the inner workings from Send API, webhooks, templates, built-in NLP, analytics,
Yep.
and a whole lot of features. But my question is, for people who are watching this and want to reproduce this, where can they go and find all of these details?
Yeah, sure. So we've put all the information regarding this experience on the developer.facebook.com. And in order to access directly the page, you can just type fb.me/get-sample-oc. And this is where you will see all the features that we are using to build this experience. We are also covering different point of entries because you want your experience to be discovered by your user, right?
Right.
So if you want to get more information around that, this is on this page. And we are also sharing a flow diagram that I invite you to use as well if you want to see how we've built like the whole experience all together. All the deployments setup is shared as well on this page. And you have the link to the GitHub repository if you want to clone it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.